Greetings and welcome to the Astronomy Picture of the Day podcast. Today's picture for January 21st of 2025 is titled Comet Atlas over Brasilia. So what do we see here? Well, here we see the comet known as Atlas. And we see the long tail of the comet stretching up over the horizon there as we overlook the city of Brasilia in Brazil. And the comet tail will always point directly away from the sun. So that tells us, of course, at this point that the sun was below the horizon. So the sun would have been down below here. The comet tail pushes up above. And that's because the tail is pushed away by the sun's solar wind. And that wind will then push the material back, giving the comet the tail. Now the tail is essentially a good vacuum in terms of how dense it is. It is a very low density. And in fact, the Earth has gone through tails of comets and you wouldn't even notice it, with the exception that you might get a lot of extra meteors that would occur at that time. Now Comet Atlas here did pass close to the sun and is on its way back out into the outer solar system. And it was uncertain as to whether it would break apart or even if it did partially break apart. But it does have a very long tail and is visible for those observers in the southern hemisphere. So if you're farther north, you're not going to see this. It's very low in the sky. It's going to be very hard to pick out. But for those south of the equator this time, getting a chance to see the comet as it moves away from the sun and heads back out into the outer solar system. And how quick it fades is the question. How fast will it fade before it gets to the point where you can no longer see it? It just fades into the ordinary brightness of the sky. So will that happen before it gets far enough away from the sun to be easily visible? And since comets are notoriously unpredictable, we really can't tell you. We can make predictions, but they're not always very accurate. We don't always know for sure what a comet will do because their structures just are not well known. And what they're made up of is primarily icy material with some dusty material mixed in. But how stable that is can depend on the individual comet. So we can't just say that all comets are the same. Some may have material more tightly packed, and that would therefore make them a little probably less likely to have a long tail. Whereas those that have very loose material would have it much easier to have that vaporized off of the surface and then give us a much longer tail as we see. But trying to be able to learn about that is not something we can do from Earth because we cannot see the nucleus of a comet from Earth. Here we see the material around the head of the comet, but the nucleus would be completely invisible at this scale. So even with the most powerful telescopes, we would not be able to see the nucleus of a comet. In fact, the only ones we've ever seen are those that we've sent spacecraft out to visit. So here we get to see Comet Atlas over Brasilia as our picture of the day for today. So that was our picture of the day for January 21st of 2025. It was titled Comet Atlas over Brasilia. We'll be back again tomorrow for the next picture, previewed to be up north. So we'll see what that is about tomorrow. And until then, have a great day, everyone. And I will see you in class.